morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, respective radio stations island-wide, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, and online viewers. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, and the Acting Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, Veronica Janssen-Webster, to address you. Minister Janssen-Webster, you have the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Prime Minister, colleagues, ministers, members of the press, and citizens of St. Martin. As the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, I am pleased to address you today on several important health and safety matters affecting our community. Our CPS department warns that with the excessive temperatures lately, it is important to stay cool and to keep hydrated. This is especially critical for our young and elderly and for those with underlying medical conditions such as diabetes and high blood pressure. If you have to be outdoors, protect your skin by wearing sunscreen, a hat, and loose-fitting clothes, and drink plenty of water. Remember to take care of your household pets by keeping them indoors or in well-shaded areas. Despite no reported dengue cases in the past 2 weeks, sporadic rainfall creates opportunities for mosquito breeding, and as such, the community is asked to frequently check indoor and outdoor spaces for standing water in places like flower pots, vases, garages, bottles, tires, and in the pet dishes. Secure your cisterns and water containers with mesh coverings and clean drains and gutters. Wearing long-sleeve clothing and using mosquito repellent can also help protect against bites. We have some upcoming public health campaigns where the department is working on several campaigns, including lupus awareness, salt reduction, and anti-vaping. These will be launched in the coming weeks, and we encourage the community to follow Collective Prevention Services Facebook pages. As you know, June 1st, which is already on Saturday, is the start of the hurricane season. And as such, the department is also, the ministry is also in collaboration with the Ministers of Health of Aruba and Curacao and the State Secretary for Health of the Netherlands. We are increasing inter-island medical cooperation during disasters. A tabletop exercise is scheduled for May 31st, that's Friday, to test our procedures for medical evacuation after a disaster. This involves collaboration with hospitals within the Dutch Caribbean, SZV, Ministries of the Interior and Kingdom Relations, the representation of the Netherlands in Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin, the Ministry of Defense, and crisis management offices within the kingdom. This exercise is a crucial step towards enhanced preparedness and cooperation among the islands. We also have an ongoing STEP survey, and we need at least 2,000 respondents. So we are asking the community, once approached, to please participate in the STEP survey that is primarily looking at the NCDs, non-communicable diseases, and it's a PAHO-assisted project in the ministry. That is all I have on VSA. I would like to proceed with VROMI as acting Minister of VROMI. As we spoke about heat, I know that questions will come regarding GBE and load shedding. So I have a statement prepared regarding the current situation in GB. There is deep concern from the ministry and the cabinet with regards to the operational capacity of the current operational capacity of NVGB. GB, which has struggled to regain public confidence following the 2022 cyber attack that crippled the company's data and billing system. has led now to load shedding. As a former GB director, I know very well the challenges that are being faced now. And having had a meeting last week with GB, we noticed that the public has previously been literally and figuratively kept in the dark regarding the actual state of the company. And so, although I acknowledge the hard work of the GB employees, and especially those now who are trying to fix the billing system, we notice that there's a lot that has to be done. And we encourage them to continue the work. Right now, when we look at the billing, there are still 600 customers who have yet not been billed since the hack. That's quite a lot. What that means now is that if you are one of those 600, you can expect to receive up to 25 bills at once. So I am saying this to warn people not to get upset or get excited. Once you receive those 25 bills, what we have discussed with the company is to have some aftercare, so to contact these people to let them know what exactly is the case, because they have to bill you. Maybe you have already paid, but they have a responsibility to bill you. So you might say, but I paid this already. So what we're saying is contact the company, and then they will straighten this up for you. It has been done for the other customers already, but these 600 can expect now to receive these bills. When it regards the load shedding on the production side, we know that there is a problem with one of the main base engines, and it's a very severe problem, and as such, the mechanics are now looking at the engine this week to see what can be salvaged and what can be done. And so by next week, we will be able to hear more about what can happen with this engine. So I am asking the population to bear with GB. I know it has been a lot. It has been very difficult, but I am here asking the population to bear with GB where you can cut back. And then again, stressing on with the heat that we're experiencing, we want the elderly and the young people to be, the children, the vulnerable, to be aware that you have to stay cool. At the same time, I am here asking you to also see in which ways you can conserve energy, as we are facing some difficulties now in the company with the engines. Another issue which could have led a bit to, so besides the heat that we're experiencing, which is climate change, but also another issue is that we've seen where VROMI has been issuing building permits, sometimes for very large projects, and there has been no communication with GB on what projects are coming up. So in keeping with what are we doing now, what are we doing differently, we are now having a meeting with GB to inform them of which large projects are ongoing, which building permits are up for approval, so that GB can plan ahead, and also for not only production, but for the distribution grid. We also would like to inform the public again of the upcoming hurricane season. So watch at your haulers, your garbage haulers schedules, because there will be garbage pickups, cleanups in the neighborhoods from the haulers. So look into that. The VROMI continues their regular maintenance, checking all of the contracts. We heard about some garbage that has not been picked up, and so we have had discussions with the haulers on those points. There's a lot more, but there's limited time, and so we will have some press releases out this week, so to inform you more about VROMI. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Johnson-Webster, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to open the floor to the members of the media to pose their questions for Minister Johnson-Webster. The floor is open, and Bibi Hart Shaw of SMN News, you're up.
Good morning. Thank you, Leica. Good morning, ministers. For Minister Jansen, you took office about a month ago. You took office about a month ago. Have you met with the St. Martin Medical Center? And can you tell us what's the progress with the new hospital?
I did not meet with the medical center formally as yet. There was a meeting scheduled. I think it was scheduled for the same day which we had the political disturbance. And so on that day, meetings were postponed. The office is right now, I think yesterday, they were making calls to reschedule with the medical center. I met with the director of the medical center informally. So I met with him informally because I was there for Nurses Day to meet with the nurses, and then I met with him informally, and I informed him that we would be coming back. So then I will be able to tell you more about where the hospital is right now, because that's very important for me to know where it was when I came in, where I met it, so that I can know if it's going to be finished when it is supposed to be finished, which I understood from the former ministers at the end of 2025.
Can I ask another question?
We'll go to the next person. I would like to now invite Mr. Emily of Island 92 Radio. You have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
So I want to be sure that I understood correctly your statement. I understand that there's a severe problem with one of the engines at GB.
Mm-hmm.
You used the word to see what can be salvaged from the engine, which seems to give an indication that perhaps the engine's not ever going to be operational. So, which would mean that the public could expect continuing issues.
Well, we will find out by the end of this week, the beginning of next week, when the mechanics who are looking into it now, they will be able to tell us what can be done. This is a crankshaft issue, and so that is something that is not just a minor repair. So because it is something that is considered a severe repair, sometimes it can be done. There are things that you can how you can repair that, but sometimes it doesn't hold. So you have to do the work and then see if it holds. Then the engine will be okay, and if not, then you have to go over to buying a new crankshaft, which is a very costly something.
Okay, so my question then relates to my understanding that ordering, the tender process and ordering of a new generator is a very long-term process. They don't keep them on the shelves. Can you explain what is the time frame for ordering?
18 months normally, between 18 months to 2 years from when you start to order, because as you said, they are not made ready to go. You have to order, and then they are put together, and then they have to be shipped. This is when you're looking at an engine, and the company is busy right now seeking financing to order the necessary generators so that we could be the company could be up to date with the load that is necessary.
Okay, so my question is, given the current uncertainty with GB, will the government consider a moratorium on granting permits for larger projects, since you're not sure about the capacity able to produce the electricity? And will you also look at, finally, a net metering policy? Because as you're looking for ways to generate more activity, more electricity, one way would be with solar energy, but people need a proper net metering policy in order to make those investments.
Both solutions that you mentioned just now are solutions that GB is looking into. So especially with large properties, there is a 500 kVA limited own use. But any usage more than that, you have to have permission from GB for your green energy. And it's for own use. What they are looking into now as well is the possibility for more properties to be able to handle temporarily their own production. Anything will help. So that was the first thing you mentioned. And what was the second one? Was the
Will you consider a moratorium?
Moratorium, yes. It's something that's also being discussed. Again, a decision has not been taken on it as yet because it's kind of drastic, but we are looking. It's about to speak with me, so to come to give that presentation to us as well, so that I am more informed about it. Just this morning, I had people from the community who are suffering because their house, the neighbor is excavating and it's affecting 4 other properties in one area. So it's something that we have to look into, how these excavations are being done, but also other environmental issues. They are very dear to my heart. So I would really like to meet with the Nature Foundation. I know Nature Foundation they played a much larger role in VROMI-related matters with previous governments, with previous ministers, and I would also like to have them play the role that they are supposed to play with us as well.
Nature Foundation is one. The other is Acrobatics, is a geoengineering company from the French side that gave the presentation about the excavation.
Yeah, so they
Have you seen that presentation?
I have not seen it, but they can request a meeting with us and come in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Janssen-Webster. This does bring us to the end of your round of question and answers.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Finance, Marinka Gums, to address you. Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Fellow colleague ministers, member of the press, and to the people of St. Martin, good morning and blessed day to all. In today's press briefing, allow me to cover very important topics, starting with Vacation Allowance 2024, which payment is expected on June 15th, 2024. To all dedicated civil servants, please be informed that the vacation allowance of 6% will be paid on June 15th, 2024. However, because the legislation is not yet approved, regrettably, we cannot include the 1% increase of vacation allowance at this time. As we know, the vacation allowance is based on the LMA, which is the 6%. However, a letter dated February 5th, 2024, signed by former PM Jacobs, third paragraph to the end of said memo indicated, and I quote, except for the lump sum that was paid out in December 2023, all above mentioned agreements will be retroactively effective on January 1, 2024, and implemented when the corresponding legislation is approved and comes into force. End quote. The mentioned agreements were the 1% increase in vacation allowance and the 2% indexation. Some may question, is the 1% and 2% budgeted for? And the answer to that is yes. However, despite the budget 2024 being enacted on May 14, 2024 by His Excellency Governor Bailey, the law does not go into effect until June 26, 2024, retroactively to January 1, 2024. Therefore, we cannot go above the law to include the 1% increase in vacation allowance or the 2% indexation. At this time, these additional benefits will be received when the legislation is approved, which we have requested that some urgency be placed on the matter. Number plates. There is a growing concern, and we have taken notice that there are several motorists driving without number plates affixed to their vehicles. We are aware that these persons may have paid for their 2024 road tax and are awaiting their number plates. However, they did receive the QR code sticker. Based on information received from the receiver's office, there is an estimation of about 1,100 to 1,500 persons that are yet to receive their number plates, but have paid for them. Despite this setback, and taking the revenues received for road tax 2024 into consideration, both the Minister of Justice and I believe that controls need to commence to ensure that motorists have paid their 2024 road tax, and if not, unfortunately, fines will be issued. Fines will not be issued at the moment to those who have paid their road tax and who have their sticker but have not yet received their number plates. However, if you do not have your QR code sticker and underlying documents, you will be fined. We encourage all motorists who are yet to pay their 2024 road tax to please do so. I need to make a point of clarification. In a press statement issued on Monday, May 27, 2024, I stated in the matter relating to the immigration officers pertaining to their overtime pay was that all officers received their overtime pay for March and April in the payroll of May 2024. However, on Monday, May 27th, during the urgent meeting called by my person along with the Minister of Justice, we were informed due to a technicality on the onus of management having taken the responsibility for their error, 12 officers did not receive their pay up to press time. However, that matter was immediately remedied by the hardworking employees at Wages and Salaries Department, and today I can confirm that these 12 officers have been paid as well. Allow me to thank Mrs. Berta Lacuna Lopez and staff for their assisting in this matter. We sincerely hope that the hardworking officers are aware that we do not, and we are not in the business of not paying what they are rightfully due. So, I can state today, all overtime based on information received was paid. Again, we encourage department heads to ensure that policies and procedures as it relates to payroll and payroll processing are in order and followed, as we deem it very important that persons are paid timely for their hard work, and we do not need industrial action taking place, especially at our border controls, where the effects of this are long-standing, long-lasting, and damaging and costly to the country. Due to interest of time, after listening to former ministers this week make statements concerning the 90 million guilders left in what was stated as having a robust coffer, I will be having a separate press conference where not only detailed information, but clarification on this 90 million guilders will be outlined. For I believe it is important and imperative that we understand what was left, what it is slated for, and how and when it can be used. For if it's one thing I know to be true, transparency, clarity, and understanding is very important. Thank you for your time and attention. May God continue to bless the people of St. Martin, and we look forward to better days ahead.
Thank you, Minister Gomes, for your opening remarks. I would now like to invite Bibi Hatshaw. You have the floor.
Thank you, Roleika. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
If I have you correct, you said that the vacation allowance will be paid on June 15th,
Yes,
excluding the 1% and the 2% indexation.
that's correct.
You went on to say that the budget was passed and the law can only go into effect as of June 26th. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell me then, after June 26th, will the 1%, including the 2% indexation, be paid
It will be
retroactively?
Yes, it will be paid retroactively once the legislation is also put in place, because there's two factors. Legislation needs to be put in place, and also the budget goes into effect as of June 26th. So those two factors have to be taken into consideration, and that will be done. Once it's done, then we will definitely pay the 1% and the 2% retroactive to January 1.
My next question regarding investments. The government have said, the former government, on numerous occasions, that after a decade, they were able to secure capital investment, CAPEX. There are a number of projects that these monies are to be used for. Since you are only going to be in office just over 3 months or 3 months because you have called elections, what are those projects that will be executed within this 3 months period?
Thank you for your question, Bibi. As I mentioned, I would be having a separate press conference to which I will be inviting the press. At that time, I would be explaining this 90 million guilders in detail because I believe it's important that everyone really understands what was left in the coffers, into which I would take your questions at that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bibi. I would now like to invite Emily. You have the floor.
Thank you, Minister. You refer to the importance of transparency and allude to that's what you're hoping to improve with the press conference. Every minister, outgoing minister, produces a transition document for its cabinet. So there's there's the public statements from the previous government that painted one picture. And then there's a transition document which should be realistic, which should be accurate, because that gives you the basis to run the ministry as you come in. The previous government had said they're willing to make that transition document public. Would this government consider making those transition documents public? By all means, redact whatever is confidential. But I think the public is confused about what's the right story. There's money, there's no money. So would you be willing to make those transition documents public and redact whatever is confidential or dangerous for the government?
Thank you for your question. That question is something that I believe the entire CoM would have to decide on. That's something that we have not discussed. However, I think your question can be taken into consideration, and together we can come to a decision on that matter.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Lee. I would like to invite Stephen Cerulean. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Madam Finance Minister, earlier this week, the Minister of TEATT indicated that the budget has been cut by 22 million guilders. Can you tell us as to what ministries have been impacted by such a cut?
I believe the question was, or the statement was made when I stated in the last press conference that we would have to cut across the board 22 million, and that's within all ministries. So all ministries are definitely affected by this cut.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Stephen. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Good morning, Minister. The previous Council of Ministers reduced the travel budget for Parliament with 68%, from some 600,000 guilders to a little over 200 for 15 MPs. And then the Minister of TEATT said that he was going to introduce ship registry, big fishing trawlers under St. Martin flag. That never happened, so the money for that, 400,000, didn't come back. So where are the MPs now traveling from? Where's the money coming from for the travels to Parlatino and other travels?
Jacqueline, thank you for your question. At this time, I do not have a response that I can give you. There is something as well that we would have to look into, and then I can revert to that in my separate press conference that I would be having. I would be able to answer your question at that time. You're welcome.
Thank you, Minister Gums. Thank you, members of the media. This does bring us to the end of Minister Gums' question and answer session. I would now like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice and Acting Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Lyndon Lewis, to address you. Minister Lewis, you have the floor.
Good morning to my fellow colleagues, Prime Minister, and the press. Listening viewers, good morning, St. Martin. This is my first press briefing, as I have missed the first one due to being off island for purposes of the country. However, I would like to address matters concerning the Ministry of Justice at this moment. On Sunday, 26th, I received a phone call from someone outside informing me that a prisoner was severely beaten in the isolation cell. I contacted the director of the prison with regarding such, in which he thereafter informed me that indeed the prisoner was severely beaten and transported to the St. Martin Medical Center. However, I took it upon my person as not only the Minister of Justice, but as an individual that has empathy, and I visited the St. Martin Medical Center, where I have also spoken to the prisoner. The prisoner basically explained that he was in isolation, and I learned that isolation means, of course, you're alone. So how could it have been that the prisoner was severely beaten by two unknown assailants in prison uniform? I have addressed the matter, and an investigation is ongoing. As I learned, to enter the isolation cell, you have to go through 3 doors. But yet this prisoner was severely assaulted. These matters to me is very serious. Hence the reason when I started my first time as minister, I hit the ground running because I am from this ministry. And I have known about the different type of corruptions that we may have, and I would like to root it out of our system. 13 officers have also taken legal proceedings against the Minister of Justice. This has been ongoing before my tenure. I have managed to have spoken to the 13 officers, whereby I have got the litigation against the minister dropped by their legal representation. These are 13 new officers before the second and third last that was sworn in by me. So nearly 40 decrees I have requested by the chief of police to have them ready. He had them ready, they're on my desk, and I've sent them on to the DIV system for processing. On Monday, the 27th, I also received information that a detective within KPSM has taken the government to court, and this was the 3rd court case. However, I've assessed the situation, I have read all documents, and as a legal mind, I have made a decision. Again, 2 of our court cases, we had no legal representation of the ministry that showed up. On the 3rd one, seeing it was last minute, and I'd already assessed the situation, I ran to the courthouse. As the first Minister of Justice to represent his ministry, as I take the matters of human resource as well very serious, the judge was also proud to the fact that I came to the court myself, where there was still no legal representation on behalf of the ministry against the individual. Learning the pleadings as well from the ministry was also without my knowledge, and the information against the person was also incorrect, which partly was stated that she has received her LB, which is a Landsbesleit National Decree, and that individual did not receive that information as well. So these are matters I will take up internally to handle the situation, that the ongoing processes by this minister will be thoroughly checked. I will also involve the individuals as well to allow us not to be having litigations against this ministry, which will also allow low cost on our ministry when it comes to legal representation. Today, I have also received information from the Chief of Police early morning hours that a colleague from the Immigration Department have been arrested on the suspicion of human smuggling. This investigation is ongoing. I would like to go on the part where I'm Acting Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports. I have met with the Y2 union about 3 times regarding issues surrounding HR issues, the unhealthy situations and the upkeep of schools. I've also managed to clear the overgrown bush surrounding the Mary Genevieve de River in the Hope Estate. Discussions are also ongoing on how the ministry plans to assess the heating situation at the various schools. I've already visited the Orania School, I've visited the Ruby La Vega School, and I will continue to visit all schools. When spoken to, they told me I should meet the departments from DPE. This minister wants to meet every single school on the island, as it has my interest, in not only the public school, but the subsidized schools, and also the private schools. I also have a meeting scheduled with the St. Martin University. So the process to get on the same page with the educational entities ongoing. There's many things that were not also placed in the media, but I've also met with the prosecutor's office. I've also learned that I'm the first Minister of Justice to meet with the prosecutor's office, as we need to know, because this minister is responsible for what we call beleid and beheer. I need to know the budget. In the near future, I'll be traveling to the Netherlands with regarding to the JV overleg, where, as Minister of Justice, I also have to sign the budget for the Joint Court of Justice. I have already consultations with the Joint Court of Justice president, and further information with regards to the police, the Korpschef van Colleges, the College van Korpschef, where I'm in discussions with the Chief Carl John, and I will further get more information on that as well. To go back into education, I've also signed many study financing, and that will also, the statistics will be released in the later future, in the near future. I hand everything over to you.
Thank you, Minister Lewis, for your opening remarks. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Minister Lewis, I must tell you that I did see you hit the ground running, but can you give us an update on the LBAs? I think up to the 5th was signed off by the former minister. Where is the 6th, and how soon will those be delivered?
Okay. I have addressed this matter with the Secretary General of Justice. Understand the position of the minister. The minister is a political function, and the SG is responsible for the daily operation of the different entities on the justice. What I make sure happen is that the propaganda with the 25 LBAs each week is, for me, ineffective and insufficient, as I also requested to have more LBAs distributed. The situation at hand is 2 employees are handling this situation. 2, for a ministry of over 500 individuals. In consultations as well with the governor, I've also stated this, and that's the reason why I have made a step to reintegrate individuals that are home. There are also individuals that are home that are from the HR standpoint, that knows the job. And I came in here with a mentality or a position on to reset. Okay, whatever issues went on in the previous ministry should have been handled the proper way. And if these individuals were supposed to be dismissed, we have legislation such as the LMA or their respective rex-posities where they should have been dismissed. Many individuals within our country, within our civil service, were home, and who is accountable for having someone home on the cost of government, where I have made some calculations, rough calculations, that per one person, over 300,000 was spent on that individual, and no work was executed on behalf of this country. However, once I have the proper manpower, I also asked that it be separated. They stated, the previous government stated, that this was being done randomly. When I look at it, I'm seeing mostly police officers receiving their national decrees, but yet we have immigration who are not receiving, many of them have not received their national decrees. The national detective also, who falls under the same police rules and regulations, immigration and police, they also have not all received, and they are a smaller organization within government. So therefore, I have asked the SG to have individuals assigned, certain individuals assigned to Landsrecherche, assigned to immigration, and assigned to police, so that collectively we can have many of these LBAs in even before we go office. Because if you make a calculation of 25 every week, we'll be long gone before it's even completed.
Thank you, Minister Lewis.
You did not tell me when you are expecting the 6th.
I'm expecting, not the 6th, I'm expecting another batch hopefully this week.
Emily?
One of the objectives of the Ministry of Justice is to create a law-abiding community. The Minister of Finance mentioned about starting road controls. One of the things that we notice are the scooters, motorcycles on the roads, very often without helmets, without license plates. My understanding is, for example, when accidents happen, if there's no insurance, if the person doesn't have health insurance, it becomes an expense for the country to pay those health costs. What's your approach to creating a more lawful society, especially with regards to scooters, motorcycles being properly registered, insured, and helmets? Because in the end, very often those costs come back to the country.
Okay. I am currently in consultations with the Chief of Police with all these matters. I must say we will have a major issue as police officers are independently working for the country. The situation is, if you do not pay these officers and get them their correct salaries, a lot of them are going through some mental issues at this point. I will go as far as telling you that the reason why I personally have to make assessments, because I came from the organizations, I'll let you know this. We have officers that end up sleeping in their vehicles that are homeless. Okay? I knew about 2. This minister is the people's minister, as they call me, because these persons reach out to me personally and I pick up the phone and to understand what is going on. We have an issue with our management, all right? And I'm going to say it publicly, and each and every one of them know how I stand. And that's why I took my stance against the management team, because they are the advisors to the minister. How is it, again, you're going to have many civil servants at home on the country's expense? How is it that we have police officers because of their financial situation? Again, when you hire them, for example, you're in scale 4, you're supposed to be in scale 4 for 2 years. Then later on, when you're promoted, you go to scale 5. You're going to be in scale 5 for 3 years, and then you go to scale 6. We had people on scale 5 for over 11 years. Who is responsible for that? The person that is, sometimes I think in Dutch, so the person that is at the end responsible for this is the minister. But who have to give that information to the minister? The department heads. So we have a great issue within the departments where there's no follow-up. But because I'm from the ministry, I get the information now from my colleagues. Listen, minister, look here, I'm in service since 2005. I was promoted in 5 since 2010, and we're in 2024. So these are the situations that we have. So with ongoing discussions, yes, with the Chief of Police, we will mitigate the situation, but the priority is to put these officers in their proper scale so that we can see them work effectively.
Thank you, Minister. Stephen Cerulean.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Minister, earlier on you spoke of the possible corruption at the Point Blanche prison. What indications do you have that corruption do take place at the prison? Can you elaborate a bit more on that for us?
Okay. Like I just mentioned, if someone is in isolation, how can one be brutally beaten in isolation? When I also explained that there are 3 doors to enter there, who let those 2 unknown assailants in? Who? The persons responsible to man the prison is the prison guards. So how did 2 unknown assailants masked in khaki clothing, the prison clothing, according to what the assaulted prisoner told me, how is it possible that 2 individuals can enter an isolation cell that has a protocol to reach in there? That only gives me the cloud of corruption. And I ask for the WAC report. I asked for all the individuals that was working that day, and I'm waiting for that information so I can proceed.
Thank you, Ministers. Thank you, Stephen. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Minister. St. Martin and Curacao have a similar a national ordinance for the management of the Crime Prevention Fund, but the management is handled totally different. For instance, in Curacao, every year in September, the Minister of Justice hands over a report to the Chair of Parliament, and that is a state of affairs of crime prevention, and also a list of all the projects where the monies from the crime fund go to. The former minister of St. Martin stated in Parliament that all the information is confidential. It's only for MPs to be seen in Parliament, but it's not shared. And there is no other information what happens with how it's administered, how it's managed, etc. So my question is, what do you think of it? Are you willing to, like in Curacao, present a list of projects that are funded? And then also would like to ask, through the prosecutor's office, we know that in the course of 4 years, $350,000 went to the crime fund. There was 1.8 million outstanding in fines that are still to be collected. There's also money that goes to the crime fund. Former Minister Richardson said there was 1 million in the account of the crime fund. What is now the total figure, and where is it? How is it spent, and who decides on that?
I have personally received a document, I think, last night with regarding to the crime funds. When something is classified, we need to have underbowing. We need to have something built up as why it is classified. This is government, and we're supposed to be transparent with the people. So, of course, if there are projects that are supposed to be ongoing, of course, I have to let the people know about those projects. I will have that discussion with the prosecutor's office. I can tell you there are many discrepancies. Before I entered, I was preparing to come in, so I was already prepared by many senior colleagues with what was taking place. And there is suspicion of mishandling of the crime funds. So I will thoroughly do an investigation on that as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. Unfortunately, with time, I'm not able to let you with the next question. Thank you, Minister Lewis. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transportation and Telecommunication, Grisha Heliga Martin, to address you. Minister Heliga Martin, you have the floor.
A pleasant good morning to my Honorable Prime Minister, to our Honorable Prime Minister, my fellow colleagues. Good morning to the members of the media, and good morning to Sweet Swaliga, the people of St. Martin. Today, I would like to share a few updates and an announcement with you. I'll be very brief, given the time constraint. As I emphasized upon taking office, agriculture remains a priority for our administration. We have recently been presented with an excellent opportunity to enhance our agriculture sector, and St. Martin has been invited to participate in a regional conference on agriculture, livestock, fisheries organized by the government of Statia. This conference, which began on Monday this week, May 27th, and will conclude on June 1st, will serve as a vital platform for collaboration discussions on the latest development, challenges, and opportunities in these fields. We have decided to send a delegation to represent us at this conference. We view this as a crucial fact-finding mission that could potentially open doors to a much-needed funding for our agriculture sector. With regard to the marketplace, let me first start by saying that funding is yet to be finalized. This project is a 50-50 venture between the cruise line and this government. And one of the delays we have recently encountered has been due to the cruise line not having reviewed the plans. 2 weeks ago, I met with the market vendors, and I promised to revise the design based on their feedback. Yesterday, as promised, I met with the vendors and presented the new design. I am pleased to announce that the vendors are very satisfied with the new plans. The next step is to present this design to the cruise line and co-funders, and once we have their approvals and fund allocation, I will then present the finalized design to the general public and begin construction. I would like to also bring to your attention an event that is scheduled to take place tomorrow titled Summer Schedule 2024. This event is being organized by the Princess Juliana International Airport in collaboration with the Tourist Office, St. Martin Tourist Bureau, and the former Minister of TEATT. From what I have gathered, this event has been planned, has been in the planning stages for over a month now. I had received an invitation this past Monday afternoon for the presentation, which mentioned my involvement. However, I would want to clarify that my name was included without my prior knowledge or consent. Last night at 9:20 p.m., I received an email from the CEO of the airport detailing the agenda for the event. PGIA will be presenting a comprehensive information on the upcoming 2024 summer schedule, including a detailed forecast and comparison from the 2023 schedule. The presentation will cover the following points, according to the CEO: historical data, forecasts for St. Martin, summer schedule 2024, and passenger movement for 2024. In conclusion, I would like to just end with this. St. Martin, we are navigating through unprecedented times, but I assure you, I am confident that we will overcome these challenges. Our resilience has always been our strength, and I'm certain that we will rise above this once again and become what I've always said: together we still can. The togetherness, we have to come back together. Thank you for your attention, and I now open the floor to the media for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Bibi Hasha, you have the floor.
Thank you. Minister, can you tell me if this government or your person has placed a moratorium on the issuance of taxis and bus license? And also, can you tell me when will the gaming board with this, when will it be enacted, and exactly who is executing this?
Thank you, Bibi Shah, for your question. No, this government has not placed a moratorium. We met a moratorium there. We have not, so it's what's there is still there. And regarding the gaming sector, yes, I met with that department head. That is very, very important. Good. I'm happy that you've asked that question, Bibi. That will be, I think we're looking at ending of the year, early next year. It is in its final stages right now.
Thank you, Bibi. Thank you, Minister. Emily?
So it's one question? Okay. In an interview, you were on the radio talking about Telem. And you mentioned that Telem is currently purchasing its internet bandwidth from another company because I think it was the SR, the line that supplies internet bandwidth to Telem is not functional. Can you please go in and explain what's happening, why it hasn't been repaired, and what the impact has been on the quality of data service through Telem, or whatever services?
Thank you for your question, Emil. Yes, I did mention that while I was working there, I think in 2017 or prior to that, around that time, there was a breakage in the cable, the SMPR1. SMPR1 is our fiber optic cable that's landed here in the Smith-Combs building since 2000. That is our bandwidth, that is our backbone for internet service provider through Telem. I'm saying our because I feel as if I'm still working there, but sorry about that. But it had an issue with, it broke. The fiber had a breakage in the waters of Puerto Rico. And I remember and I recall we were supposed to, going through, there was a lot of bureaucracy around the government in Puerto Rico to allow us to go in the waters and make the amendment. I was told recently by the management that fiber optic cable will be completely amended, hopefully between now and next month. And what that has done, that means the company had to lease another internet bandwidth, which is costly. and there's more congestion. And that's why the internet service has been this terrible. So as soon as we can get SMPR1 restored, I think for sure Telem will be able to provide quality service. That's as short as I can go. I'm sorry, I'm seeing Rolika.
Thank you, Emil. Thank you, Minister. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach.
Yes.
For some time now, the issue of the St. Martin Tourist Authority has been a concern. In fact, what we have not been seeing is the establishment of such an entity. Is it your intention as minister to at least get the ball rolling on this establishment for St. Martin?
Thank you for that question, Stephen. And yes, 1 trillion%. It is my number one priority to get the ball rolling. Our staff, together, we're working on assessing what's there, because I think last year already had a board and there's no board. So we're trying to assess what's there and see how we can really develop it. It is one of my number one priority. You'll be hearing from me very, very soon on that. That's number one for me, to make sure it's established. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Minister. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Minister. I would like to ask you this question related to economic development. Building permits have been issued for very large apartment complexes. We know about Carbon and Red Pond and other developments that were not completed, and the investors duped. Still, how can government prevent that the developers are selling these condos pre-sale online, have investors pay not through escrow but directly to the company's account, etc.? Because Carbon and Red Pond are not the only projects on the island where that happens. And then how to protect the image of the island as a destination where it's interesting or attractive to invest.
Thank you so much for your question. That's a very, very important issue that we need to also consider. That's something we would have to do a full assessment on and come up with structure. I think what's missing a lot these last couple of years is paying attention to structure, to policy, and making an accountability. And that is one of our main focus. Well, for sure, this government's main focus, because I've been hearing it from other ministers, that we're going to be paying keen attention to making sure accountability and structure is in place. I haven't been able to delve into that as yet, but that too is one of a priority for me. Thank you. Thank you, Rolika.
Thank you, Minister. I would now like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Marcelino, to address you. Prime Minister Marcelino, you have the floor.
Members of the media, good morning. The representatives of the CoM, of course, welcome. And of course, the people of St. Martin in general, good morning. I think that the last 8 days has been 8 black pages in the history on democratic level for country St. Martin. And my main activities has been focused on not only analyzing the developments that took place in the last 8 days, but also to do the damage control for us to refocus on the future of this country. We started so good on the 3rd of May, and then all of a sudden we got ourselves in a surprise on the 20th of May. With that being said, we had a member of parliament that retracted his support from our government. And I had no other choice than to make use of Article 59 to dissolve parliament. This member of parliament thought that in 11 working days of a new government, because it's 17, as people say, but in those 17 days there were 3 weekends, Saturday and Sunday, so there are 6 days for weekends. So if you deduct the 6 days from the 17, this government has set on working days exactly 11 days. I do believe that As a country, we want to make use of big-size shoes, but until now, our feet are too small to assume the responsibility to be part of status of a country with a democratic model. To make it worse, on the 25th of May, after following the disaster of the 20th, this same member of parliament decided again to change his perception about the functioning of this government that was in place 17 days. And to our big surprise, and to the surprise of the people of St. Martin, decided once more to relocate his attention and sympathy for the government that was installed on the 3rd of May. Once more, incredible, because to my perception about having an ideology on political level for yourself, you can never, in 5 days from the 20th to the 25th, have such an aggressive, radical shift in positioning yourself concerning your political ideology. Changes on political ideology level per person can never change in 5 days. So there must be other reasons that this has transpired recently. Nowhere in the world politicians can shift with their political ideology from left to right in 5 days in a year. It's impossible. We have had a lot of negative publicity in the world. I had a lot of damage control to do. I have had calls from other countries in the kingdom. I have had calls from the first chamber. I've had calls from the second chamber. I have had calls from the State Secretary of Kingdom Relations, and of course from other surrounding Caribbean islands. At the end of the day, I think an enormous negative publicity for country St. Martin. I do not believe, and I cannot understand why people wake up in the morning with a pleasure to destroy this country. Well, this is the country that keeps you going, keeps your family going, and is the country that is going to offer your next generation a future in this country. Until today, I do not understand this negativism that our people have dealing with the country that we pretend to love, that we pretend to honor, and that we pretend to appreciate. I do not get it. Sometimes I wake up very, very sad in the morning, realizing that I'm in a community that actually gets pleasure by seeing destruction taking place in the country, takes pleasure by seeing individuals being hurt emotionally for the pleasure of the entertainment of the negativism. I'm asking the people of St. Martin, this is a great country. Please, let's realize our position towards our own country. And let's realize that everything we say about this St. Martin, everything we do in this St. Martin, can hurt the future of the next generation of this beautiful St. Martin. I'm asking all of you to do an auto-reflection for a more constructive approach for this country. For example, against my will, I canceled already a trip to the Antigua because we were in a crisis situation politically, and I did not find that as a leader of a government in the week that this was going on that I should travel to the SITS where a Dutch delegation was actually planned to meet with me, but I did it. And now there is a threat following us that we are going to lose 230 million allocated by the World Bank through the Trust Fund for actually projects that it's already allocated to, but because of lack of manpower and lack of knowledge to handle the procurement to execute these projects, we are now having the risk that we are going to lose this $230 million for Country St. Martin. And these $230 million are going to be relocated to restructure and organize our mental health care, our housing issues in this country on the level of social housing and also on the level of affordable housing, and also the crying situation of water, sewage, especially, for example, in Dutch Quarter. Not for me to hear on social media that this Dr. Marcelina is traveling to Washington because he has a deal in a $200 million affair from the World Bank that he has no influence to touch, and only traveling to see if he can actually safeguard these amounts that are allocated already to execute these projects, but because of shortage on manpower and knowledge to execute, we are in an enormous delay with these projects, and that is the reason that the World Bank doesn't want to proceed in supervising these amounts of money for us to execute them after 2028. Just for you to see how people twist things in this country the whole day for reasons of popularism. And actually, it's a disease at this particular moment in our country that we are finding more respect for destructive entertainment of people through social media than we are asking ourselves if we have a positive contribution to the development of this country. Coming back to the shifts that took place with first retracting support to government and giving back the support to government by one member of parliament, I pulled Article 59, and people have to understand very good that once you invoke Article 59, it is not possible to retract that national decree anymore. Once this member of parliament gave us the support again for our government, making it a majority of 8 again, people thought that we could govern further for the coming 4 years. That is not the case. You cannot retract this national decree. And that means that once you do that, you have to head to elections. So we are in the modus of reorganizing the upcoming elections already. For clarity's sake, once more, the national decree has been signed on the 27th of May. The registry, the voter registry, will close on the 3rd of June. The deadline for registration of political parties will be the 17th of June. The postulation, being in Dutch the kandidaatstelling, will be on the 2nd of July. Elections will be on the 19th of August. And the assembly of the new parliament will be on the 20th of September. Because of time constraint, I got already the sign that I will have to stop in this phase of my participation of what I had to say as Prime Minister of the country. I'm leaving it over to you guys for the questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Erlaike. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning.
My first question to you is,
Yes.
I listened to part of the press conference you had last week since I was off island.
Yeah.
And what I heard is that the country is in dire state.
Yes.
Financially.
Yeah.
Why then, as a Prime Minister, as a responsible person, give us another debt of 500,000 guilders for new elections? That's one part of my question. And the second part of my question is, what short-term plans do you have that can be achieved in 3 months?
What short plans? The problem is if you have short-term plans in a dimensionaire status of your government, You cannot talk about significant plans that is going to change the course of the country because you do not have the authority as a dimensionaire government. And that's why every time again, when you have an interruption of continuity, you're going to throw back the government. And that is the reason that the plans that you have should be of significance to change the course for evolution in positive sense for the country, that we are not in the position to do that in the coming 3 months until the end result of the upcoming new elections for country St. Martin. Concerning the question, Mrs. Shaw, concerning the 500,000 Antillean guilders to organize an election, we are now busy contemplating to make a quick scan of where we are because there is a lot of contradiction in the financial status of government. And at this particular moment, it's so contradicting that we are now in a phase that we're getting nervous, and we thought we have to actually do a quick scan by an independent authority institution to put at place for us to please help us now. Where are we in the financial coffers of this country? But this quick scan is going to cost the country $175,000 to do the quick scan for all ministries, and not even going in the details of how far do you want this quick scan to take place. So we are now realizing the dear economic status that the country is in, and we will have to take a decision for us to get the updated, correct, realistic status of the country, if we are going for it or not. But where we are for sure now, we are very confused about the reality of the status of the finance of this country. And I told you, for example, what they did in the budget is, for example, they decided already in the budget, and they calculated themselves rich already with 13 million by selling shares of the Winair. No decision has been taken about selling shares of a company of our people, but they already counted themselves rich by put it as revenues for the country. So we have already a miscalculation of 13 million by just making a popular statement that we're going to sell shares of Winair, to give you an example. Okay.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Emily, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you. 2 quick questions. Will the missing 2 ministers still be screened and installed to bring the Council of Ministers to a full complement? And although you're demissionaire, everyone speaks about, every successive government has spoke about, electoral reform.
Yes.
But at least the government still could go through the legal processes and make proposals and make a suggestion to send to Parliament for discussion.
Of course.
And although the timeline would be very tight, it might be possible to do that before elections if all hands are on deck. Would that be something that you would strive for as an objective of this government?
I went back and looked into the correspondence that took place about electoral reform. In 2019, the ex-governor, Mr. Holliday, sent a letter to 4 stakeholders, being government, parliament, electoral council, and central voting bureau, with a serious request to align the national ordinance registration and finance political parties, and also the ordinance, election ordinance, the kiesverordening as they call it in Dutch, to align them with our constitution. Because there are some contradictions that makes it in snap elections, for example, very difficult to accommodate all the time limits in a way that we do not come in a conflict situation with the constitution. This is going on since 2019. So what I decided now is, but I have been very busy with actually doing damage control to what has happened to our country, but I'm planning coming week to send to the legal department of our government a request for us to start trying to come with suggestions and advices for me to see how we're going to change the laws, the landsverordeningen, in a way that is going to accommodate the elections in a way that we are not going to come in conflict situations with our constitution. Coming back to your first question, Mr. Lee, we are not a interim government. We are a dimensionaire government. Dimensionaire government means that we handed over our resignation already by the governor. So I say, Mr. Governor, I realize that I do not have the support of the majority in Parliament. So by this, I hand you over my government. And he reacted by telling me, please, you are dimensionaire, but carry on as a caretaker government this country for me to keep it a little under control until the election is over. By that decision, he didn't make me an interim. I'm a dimensionaire. I resigned. How can I now request ministers to come in a cabinet that resigned? It's not possible. So that's the reason I consulted many legal minds concerning this, and it's very logical that you cannot appoint ministers in a dimensionaire cabinet. It would be another story if this government would become a interim government. That's all a story, because this government then can move forward with addition of two, in this case, two more ministers.
So I'm sorry, my clarification. The question was not so much about, well, thank you for that answer,
Yeah.
but regarding the electoral reform, not as much about the electoral process, but perhaps more fundamentally about the issue of stability of government. We operate on this formula of a trias politicas, where the parliament is supposed to have a separation from government, but in reality it doesn't. So there's a fundamental issue there that is, I think, at the core of the problem of government's instability, is parliaments picking and choosing their ministers, per se.
Mr. Lee, stability and continuity in a democratic system in a country, in this specific case, does not depend on the legislation. It depends on our maturity to deal with our country. And we just have to accept that we are in our development in our country, that we are very young. Politics and democracy is a big boys game. But we are children playing with the rules of a game that is a quite complicated process. But we are children still, because we are in a young country. And I hope one day that we will have enough education, that we understand the concept of democracy, and in this way be able to deal in a more adult way with our democratic process from our country.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Prime Minister, the Atlantic hurricane season is to start officially on Saturday, June 1st. We heard the Minister of VSA spoke of a possible collaboration between St. Martin and Aruba. Can you help us to understand as to the state of readiness of St. Martin in the event of a hurricane?
Yes. I have had already a full introduction by the EUC, and we have now coming week a meeting with the EFC. It's about 10 of them, and we are well already preparing and discussing, especially on communication level. Most of the time, it's not that persons don't know what they have to do in assuming the responsibility in what they have to contribute to in this whole crisis moment, but it has more to do with communication with each other and understanding the mechanism, how that dynamic process works. So in principle, we are getting also very good cooperation from the Marine from the Netherlands. We had actually, unfortunately, the 30th last week. I think it was last week. We had a planned meeting with them. They're very, very, very willing to help us in crisis situation, catastrophes. But unfortunately, I had to cancel it because of the political developments that just occurred. But in principle, we are working very, very, very hard, realizing that this hurricane season is coming for us to safeguard the security of the people of this country with the limited possibilities that we have in this country. We are walking at this particular moment the way we took over this government on a thin line of stability. Not only stability on political level, but also on infrastructure level to handle and be a good buffer to deal with the surprises of catastrophes for our country. One of them is, for example, our GB. Without catastrophe, look how we are with our utility of our country. With all respect, everybody doing their best by GEBE, but still, it makes us very, very vulnerable. So at the end of the day, we are in a state now with a lot of negligence on all fronts that brought us to a very vulnerable society in which we have to be very, very, very aware of how delicate things are now for us, especially going through this hurricane season that seems to be quite busy for St. Martin.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Thank you for allowing me this question. Prime Minister, the two national decrees for candidate ministers, Peterson and Emmanuel, were sent back to you by Governor Bailey.
Yes.
Where are these LBs now at this
On my
moment?
desk. And if I have to send them back, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to ask the governor, as head of our government, to install ministers in a government that resigned. So let's be honest, clear, and correct. And that is legal-wise not possible. So even if I send him back, that's a request for him to do something with it. But what can he do with it coming from a prime minister that resigned with his whole cabinet?
Okay.
That's not logical, right?
Yeah,
we had plans to do it, by the way. If the government did not fall, we would have done it because I still stand behind my two ministers. Don't misunderstand this. But the context has changed now that it makes no sense to send them now. But I still stand 100% behind the two candidates being Mr. Christopher Emmanuel and Mr. Rian Peterson.
But the decision from the governor to send them back to you instead of to the Rijksminister, the king, for annulment,
yes,
according to the regulations for the governor, what are the chances that after the snap elections the same situation will occur with these candidates or with other candidates?
If that is the case, I would send them back to him, and he has to assume his responsibility and do what he thinks that he has to do. I cannot decide for the governor. I can decide as a prime minister what my responsibility is, but I cannot decide for the governor. He has the LB, and if he doesn't want to sign him, he has his guidelines what he has to do as a governor with an unsigned LB.
Thank you, Prime Minister Marcelina. Thank you, members of the media. This does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet directly. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. For rebroadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Telem's TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.